Welcome back. Just ahead of tomorrow night's big GOP presidential debate here on the Fox Business Network, our own Gerri Willis took to the streets of New York. She's been asking people what they want the candidates to address when it comes to the economy. Gerri.
That's right, Maria. Good morning. The recession, well, it may have ended back in June 2009, but many Americans say they're still having trouble providing for the family. The majority of Americans have less than $1,000 in emergency savings. And the Social Security Administration just last week said that half of us earn $30,000 a year or less. Despite an upbeat jobs report Friday, Americans say they have serious questions about jobs, health care, and taxes.
America wants specifics on job creation, right? Instead of saying, I have a plan, I can create jobs. I know Donald Trump says, just listen to me, I'll create the jobs. But I think people want to actually know, how is he going to create the jobs?
What are they going to do to fix health care? Because the problem is not fixed. I feel like it's getting worse.
So, Maria, these were just a couple of the folks that we talked to on the streets. They come from all walks of life. We had business owners, single moms, you name it, all kinds of people. And throughout the day, I'll be bringing their information, their questions for the candidates to Fox Business Network. So stay tuned for those reports all day long.
All right, we'll be watching, Gerri. Thanks so much. Gerri Willis in New York. And Scott Brown, let me ask you about that, because I'm glad she brought up Obamacare. We know this is one of the priorities for voters right now. The fact is all this money people saved on oil, right, at the gasoline pump, oil down 50%, they're not spending that because they have higher bills for the Affordable Care Act.
Listen, not only did it cut billions from the let me strike that.
Yeah.
It's not good for businesses in that it's putting more and more regulations. The people are keeping their employment artificially low because they don't want to hit these certain thresholds. You have the Cadillac tax clicking in. A lot of the unions and so-called Cadillac plans are going to get hammered soon. A tremendous amount of insecurity when it comes to tax and regulatory certainty. They don't know what's next, so they're kind of holding back.
And isn't it true, Dagen, that businesses have started changing the way they hire? They may hire temp. They may take your hours down. They don't want to be married to the fact that they are forced to give these benefits because it's costing so much.
It literally is a law to encourage part-time employment and not full-time employment. And it's only over the last several years that you're really starting to see the broad economic impact across the country of that. But you see, it's not just the premiums going up. I mean, even for like kind of the choice tiers of plans, just in 1 year, significant increases in premiums, but also lack of choice. People are more and more losing the options and choices that they were given in previous health care plans. It is turned into something. It is not what was sold to the American people, not in any way, shape, or form.
And you have 18 new taxes, $750 billion being cut from our seniors' Medicare, and you have the co-ops in Kentucky. Look what's happening in Kentucky. To your point, the choices are getting less and less and less, and it's just, you look at Obamacare, that's the VA in a couple of years.
Well, no wonder we saw the election go that way in Kentucky, by the way.
That's right.
All of what was just said leads to lower quality jobs. So even though the numbers are big, Maria, the jobs in terms of the people, what they're getting, are not the high-quality jobs that we saw in the 90s.
Now, when you say the numbers are big, they were big last month.
Yeah, the 271.
The
271,000.
There's a disincentive to actually get out there and work hard because businesses aren't hiring.
But they're under 40 hours a week. Right. They may or may not include the health care from the company, so therefore the people have to opt for Obamacare. And so the epitaph for the law will be that it was a small business jobs killer, and that's really where most of the higher quality jobs come from.
And then there's tax reform. Let's get into that for a minute, because all of the candidates are talking about the tax code being convoluted, the regulatory environment really holding back business from hiring. But they're not all specific. I mean,
well, we have the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. We have more and more regulations that are stifling job growth and job creation. So, yes, we need to be competitive on a global basis. This isn't a parochial situation where we're just competing amongst ourselves. We're competing against the rest of the world. So there's no surprise that businesses have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize their shareholder values. They're going to do what they got to do.
We had a tax reform in 1956. We had a tax reform in 1986. We're now 29 years away from the last tax reform. You need to reform the taxes every generation, Maria, because lobbyists and congressmen, no offense to the congressman here, they layer on special interest tax code and exemptions and exceptions. 76,000 pages now since the 86 tax reform. That is a disaster.
And yet Hillary Clinton wants to double capital gains taxes.
Oh, and make it more complicated, though. It's like a
hold it for 6 years.
That's a Bernie Sanders pivot.
Tiered
Is that what it is?
I think it is. It's a Bernie Sanders pivot. Try to keep those people on the left from voting for him.
And by the way, what the Democrats will do, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, they're focused on drug prices, which is a small fraction of overall health care spending in this country. It's about 10%. They're going to focus on drug prices going up rather than looking at the whole of Obamacare and saying we need to rip it up.
I want to talk to you about that. I know it's important to you, and we got to get into that because that is a huge issue. The government getting involved in pricing of drugs. All right.